What's going on, everybody? It is the after Thanksgiving edition of the Craft Beer Cast. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope you had a great time with all the turkey and all the good stuff, right? Football and just hanging out and doing things and spending time maybe with some family. It's always a good thing, right? Always a good thing. We got a lot of news and notes to get to because coming up in just under 10 minutes from now, Eric McGowan, the co-owner of Pallet Brewing, will join me from the brewery located in Maplewood, New Jersey, just a few minutes off the Garden State Parkway, exit 142C. Lots of stuff to get to with Eric. His brewery has only been open for a few months. Why choose Maplewood? And a tasty West Coast IPA that I drank during the interview, and why that beer, a West Coast IPA, or that style of beer, is Eric's nemesis, trying to make it. We'll get into all of that in just about 10 minutes from now. But we've got news and notes to get to. So this happened about 2 weeks ago. Torch and Crown Brewing Company's location on Van Dam Street in Soho abruptly closed. They were about 5 years into a very big space that extended into the basement. I was there when they started the construction of the place. And John Danzler, who's been a frequent guest on this program, co-owner of Torch and Crown, talked about all the things they were going to do with that brewery. And Chris O'Leary from Brew York stopped by the space about a week or so ago to find that the doors were chained and padlocked shut. A New York City Marshal's eviction notice was on the door, indicating that the landlord had repossessed the space by court order. Now, I found out they were closed after waking up from a nap Thursday before last, seeing a post from Doug Velke of Beer Aficionado that they had closed. Found a Reddit link that showed a link to court records indicating that the brewery owed back rent dating back to January of 2024 to the LLC that owns the building. They filed papers in housing court last year to collect those funds. In total, Torch and Crown owed $384,970 in back rent, utilities, taxes, and fees. I think it pushed it to somewhere in the $400,000 range. The company was charged a monthly rent of about $53,000 a month for that space. That's a big bill, right? And Torch and Crown had recently announced a merger with Virginia-based Aslan Beer in September. Before announcing those plans to move production to Aslan, the brewery had brewed at a facility in the Bronx that opened in late 2018. That part of it, the production part of it, shut down late last year. Late last year. Yeah, 24, September, October, something like that. Maybe it was like November or December of 24. The Soho space had been occupied by Torch and Crown since 2018 with the intention of becoming Manhattan's only brewery. Now, the tap room and restaurant opened back in October of 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. You know, trying to do a lot of different things. They had a lot of problems getting the place open. Obviously, the pandemic only compounded those things. The brewery, which was interesting, they never made beer in there. Spicy Moon is the only brewery in Manhattan down by the Bowery that's making beer. They opened a seasonal tap room in Union Square. At the time of the merger with Aslan, they had stated their intentions. They were going to start brewing beer there. We had John on the program. Said, yeah, we finally got our licenses. We're going to brew beer in here. It's going to be sort of an R&D kind of research, for small batch and limited release beers. That never happened. And now suddenly they closed because they hadn't paid taxes. Now, I got a lot of questions here. I reached out to John last weekend, said I was going to, be recording, comment, any sort of comment. Could you give me a comment? Didn't hear back from him. So we reached out. We tried to get a comment from John. Didn't happen. Look, whatever happened here, Aslan had to know that they weren't paying rent on their building. If they didn't, that's a problem. I'm assuming the merger is off, but who knows? There are a lot of other moving parts in this thing. There's a distributing arm, part of the reason why Aslan wanted to get involved with Torch and Crown, because they wanted to get their beers in New York. There's a lot of different things at play here, and I don't have all the answers, and I don't know if we're ever going to find out all the answers. $53,000 a month is a lot of money for a place that, let's face it, your beer has to be on point, and so is your food. The food was great. The beer, not so much anymore. And full disclosure, I got a bunch of cans from John when I left there in September, and I have to tell you, I had to drain pour a lot of it. It was not what it used to be. Now, is that a reflection of Aslan? I'm going to guess so, because they've been making their beer since last year. And who knows if it was a subpar product. They were replacing recipes with different ingredients that they felt like putting in. I have no idea. So this is a major problem. And whether things are going to shape up, first off, I don't think the business is ever going to reopen again. I think, if anything, if the distribution thing was a completely separate entity, you could see them continuing business as a distributor and not a brewer. But it's bad for the people that lost their jobs. It's bad for, from a business standpoint, all the way around. And again, I reached out to John for a comment, didn't get one. Maybe one comes in the coming weeks. Truth be told, I don't think that's going to happen. That's just me. All right, let's move on. I'm sad to see Torch and Crown close, but that's just not a good situation when you're not paying your rent for over a year and you don't say anything to anybody. You don't let anybody know that things are going on, behind the scenes. Not a good situation. The Siebel Institute of Technology, one of the leading brewing schools in the country, is leaving Chicago to move to Montreal on January 1st. Siebel has cited operational costs, industry trends, and increased student visa challenges to enter the United States as reasons for its cross-border move. I'm not going to get into the whole thing here, but this is a major impact. The Siebel School was founded in 1868 by German immigrant John E. Siebel. The institute has occupied several different locations throughout the city, moved to its current location in 2020. The school offers in-person and online courses in brewing, draft technology, beer and style evaluation, quality control, microbiology, and packaging. Hagen Doss, the co-founder or co-owner of Chicago-based Dovetail Brewery and Siebel alum, said Siebel's influence on American beer can't be overstated. He said, Chicago's craft beer scene is not a beer scene without the Siebel Institute. Honestly, beer in the U.S. as we know it wouldn't exist without Siebel. When I took my first class there, I walked the hallways lined with old photos, Schlitz, Pabst, Anheuser-Busch, all the names that built American brewing, they all went to Siebel. This is a big deal. And them moving to Montreal to make it easier for people to go there, and the cost, big issues. Now, yes, I know they have online courses, but you don't get the true experience unless you're there, unless you're hands-on, right? I mean, if you're working for a brewery already and you're doing stuff online, that's one thing. So this is a major shift in beer and brewing, and learning, I should say, knowledge-wise. Big shift. Brooklyn Brewery has their latest version with a stout with an esteemed bourbon icon. Kentucky-based Four Rose Distillery has done a collab with Brooklyn Brewery that began in 2019. I was at the event when that happened. Continues to flourish. Aged for 3 months in Four Roses small batch bourbon casks, specially chosen by Four Roses master distiller Brent Elliott, who we've had on the program before. Brooklyn Black Ops, 12.4% ABV Imperial Stout, dark cocoa nibs, milk chocolate, and vanilla-forward oak tones accented by subtle notes of caramelized sugar and bourbon sweetness. Garrett Oliver, the James Beard award-winning brewmaster of Brooklyn Brewery, says, I'm going to say that Black Ops 2025 might be our best ops release yet. All the flavors are punchy, sleek, racy, and so well integrated and smooth that the 12.4% ABV is a bit sneaky. This is a stout drinker stout full of clean roast flavor and beautiful bourbon notes. I'm loving it after dinner and with dessert. So good stuff there from Brooklyn Brewery. That's out now. Lawson's Epic Sip, a massive 9.5% ABV IPA, brimming with lush tropical fruit notes that are offset by an uber-sturdy malt backbone, is available now and is in the lineup of their 19.2-ounce beers. Very cool there. Pike's Brewing, Pike's Pub, and Pike Fish Bar closed as of today, slightly more than 2 years after Pike moved its brewing operations to a new facility in Seattle's Sodo neighborhood. The brewery does not have a tap room at that location. Pike directed drinkers to seek its products at on- and off-premise retailers across the Pacific Northwest and its tap room at Seattle Convention Center Summit. Pike's 2024 output declined almost 63%, according to the Brewers Association. So they were losing market share, and hence the reason for the closing. So there you go. And then let's see, what do we got here? Wet Ticket doing their holiday PJ brunch Saturday, December 13th from 1 to 4 p.m. Rudolph's Refresher will be available. A Bowls and Rolls food truck will also be there as well. And a special visitor may drop by, so hopefully you can join them for that. Big Brew's 15th anniversary is back Saturday, March 17th, 2026 at the Morristown Armory. They have VIP pricing for, $60 for all-in tickets. And let's see here. Oh, so here's the deal. You can say the savings is already built into the pricing. That's what it is. So this expires Saturday, January 2nd at midnight. No codes needed. Go to bigbrewnj.com. It's a general admission, 1 to 5 p.m. VIP is noon to 1 p.m. VIP is $60. General admission is $40. Lowest prices you're going to get for the event. And it expires Saturday, January – actually, it's not Saturday, January 2nd. It'll be Saturday, January 3rd, because the 2nd is the Friday. So I think they might have made a mistake on that one. But it is Friday, January 2nd. If they're going by January 2nd, it is a Friday. Again, to get tickets for this event, VIP $60, general admission $40, music by Mr. Lovejoy, tons of beers. Going to be great. It's a benefit for the Morris Rugby Corporation. BigBrewNJ.com is the website where you can get more information and get your tickets. When we come back after a short break, Eric McGowan, the co-owner of Pallet Brewing, will join me from the brewery. This is the Al Gattullo Craft Beer Cast on AM 970 The Answer. Welcome back to the Al Gattullo Craft Beer Cast on AM 970 The Answer. It's the Thanksgiving edition of the Craft Beer Cast. You probably had your fill of turkey and all kinds of other stuff, but obviously you're probably still sipping on a couple of beers, football games, and all that kind of good stuff. You know where to follow me on social media. On X at Al Gattullo, Instagram at Gattullo, Facebook.com/AG Craft Beer Cast. You can also check out the podcast on the HoppedUpNetwork.com right after the show airs on the radio on Sunday nights. Head over to the HoppedUpNetwork.com. You can download and listen to the show at your leisure. Now, my next guest, he's one of the owners of a new brewery. Just opened a few months back on July the 2nd, right here in Maplewood, New Jersey, right off of the Garden State Parkway, exit 142C. It's very easy to get to. It's, for me, and where I live in Clark, probably about a 10, 15-minute drive, very easy when there's no traffic, but then again, when isn't there traffic on the Parkway. The brewery is open Wednesday through Sunday, family-friendly, and for more info on the brewery and their tap room, you can head over to palletbrewing.com, or you can follow them on Instagram at Pallet Brewing. Let me welcome to the Craft Beer Cast on AM 970 The Answer for the first time, Eric McGowan. Eric, thanks for having me here. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for coming out.
You got it. Now, raised in Connecticut, but you spent the first 5 years in Maplewood. Correct. Your wife is from Westfield. Was Maplewood always going to be the spot where you decided to open a brewery?
Jersey was always going to be the spot we were going to open a brewery. My wife and I moved back up to Jersey while she was pregnant. We wanted to be closer to family when we were going to be raising our family. Mm-hmm. Originally, we were looking for a couple. My wife had a job in Jersey City. We were looking for apartments out there. Couldn't find anything we liked, could afford, and would let us keep our dog. Right. My wife, Jessie, was like, how about the suburbs? I was like, absolutely. Looked at one apartment in Maplewood, and here we are.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, my folks were super excited that we came back. Like, they're still really close with a lot of their Maplewood friends. They still love this town. So they were really excited that we were coming here. And I have very fond memories of, like, Bagel Chateau and the yellow swing at Orchard Park. That's about all I remember of Maplewood. But I've loved being back here. So once we moved here, we immediately started looking around for spaces and thankfully found this guy.
Very cool. Now, was the town very receptive for you to come in here and open a brewery?
Town was great. Could not have asked for a better town to be working with. Both like previous mayor, Dean Daffis, and the current mayor, Nancy Adams, were super excited about the idea of a brewery coming into town. This is something they've wanted to come in for a while. They were very helpful. We met with people on the planning board. They were like showing us around a couple locations. But we eventually found this guy over at 30 Newark Way, and it was off to the races from then.
Very nice. Now, experiences at Night Shift, Aslan, to name a few, even locally at Lions Roar Brewing in Westfield. What's the most important thing that you took from all of those experiences? What's the most important thing that you've taken out of that?
I think the most important thing from like working in beer for so long is consistency. You got to make sure you have a consistent product. With the number of breweries around now, it's not just enough to be like, you made a good beer once. People expect that to be like a continuing quality. Right. Places I've worked before, like, they have grown into quality. I know, like, when I was coming up at night shift, like, we were trying a lot of weird stuff. We were making a lot of weird beers, and some of them were great. Some of them were, quite frankly, not. And like 10 years ago, you could get away with like trying new stuff and like trying really weird things that maybe didn't work. But I think like people's palates have evolved, the market's evolved. There's a lot more competition out there. People are looking for a more consistent, but still like a high quality product.
Right. You're 100% right on the fact that there are so many breweries that are out there now, especially in New Jersey. Like, everybody says, well, there's not really a lot. There's over 100. We're coming to close to 150, 160 breweries. Some aren't open yet or whatever. But the bottom line is, when you open now, you don't have the leeway that breweries had 10 years ago. You've got a finite amount of time, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, to have your stuff dialed in properly and ready to go. Now, if you're dialed in right from the jump, even better. But if, there's little inconsistencies, that's okay. You can get through that, and people understand it's opening weekend. You're going to work your way through that. But if a person comes back 2 or 3 times and the suds aren't good, they're not going to come back. And especially when, discretionary spending is starting to be pulled back a little bit, regardless of what it is, you want to make sure that you have a great product. Right out of the box, when I came here in July, your beer is outstanding. So it's great to see that, that's there. That's the most important thing. But you hit on the other thing on the first one, consistency. I've interviewed Jim Cook a number of times. He has said to me that is the exact thing that he is always striving for. And he said the reason why Anheuser-Busch is so successful is because the Budweiser you open in New York, the Budweiser you open in Munich, Germany, the Budweiser that you open in Tokyo, Japan, tastes exactly the same. And that's what you want, out of your beer, is consistency. The consumer knows when they pick up that beer, it's going to taste exactly the same, and there's going to be nothing different.
Yeah, Budweiser is a fantastic example of that quality. Like Coors, they have their brewery in Golden. That makes all of the Coors. Right. Budweiser, it's like the amount of respect I have for those brewers is truly insane. Yeah. They are really like consummate professionals making incredible beer. May not be to everyone's liking, but like from a technical standpoint, they have everything dialed in. Right.
We're talking with Eric McGowan, the co-owner of Pallet Brewing in Maplewood, New Jersey, right off the Garden State Parkway, exit 142C. The brewery is open Wednesday through Sunday, family-friendly. More info on the brewery and their tap room, head to palletbrewing.com or follow them on Instagram at Pallet Brewing. That's Pallet Brewing. We're here on the Al Gattullo Craft Beer Cast on AM 970, The Answer. Now, I mentioned that I was only here the one time in the summertime when you guys opened. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed my experience. Was the space always going to be considered a family-oriented space? Because when I walked in, and I think you had just opened, and literally within 10 minutes, I saw family after family after family come in, and everybody having a great time, and it was loud, and everyone enjoying themselves. Was it always going to be a family-type space?
Yeah, it was always going to be a family-friendly brewery. My wife and I have a 2.5-year-old now. Like, we love taking her to breweries. That's the kind of place where, like, not that it's like a daycare where kids are running around causing chaos, but like a space where kids can come, play, families can hang out. We made it a point to have some kid-friendly snacks, like anything to get people to like stay that extra little bit. Like, I've seen a toddler meltdown. I've had toddler meltdowns. It's like, if we can just like, nope, here's a snack. You can stay for a little bit. That's like an extra beer that people can stick around. Especially being here in Maplewood, like this is a super family-friendly town. Right. There are a lot of young families here, so we wanted to make sure that we're not just going to be marketing to the 21-plus crowd. Right. We want people to be able to come in with their kids. We don't want it to be like you need a babysitter to come out to Pallet.
Yeah, what's interesting about the vibe of this place is it reminds me of modern times in San Diego in the college area of I think it was probably North Park, where my wife and I went. It was a smaller version of modern times, and it was a similar situation where we walked in, we started having a couple of beers, and within 15 minutes, and it was around 5 o'clock, families started coming in, just hanging out, having a beer or two, talking with people, and then going about, their business. I like that kind of vibe. I know that, lately in social media, the news seems to, they crop up a story, one brewery is taking a stand against family and kids or whatever and this and that. I think if it's done properly, it's perfectly fine. I understand where people say, I don't want to go to a place and have to worry about kids running around. But if the kids are, being maintained by their parents and things are, it's not chaotic, I think it's perfectly acceptable.
It's a constant battle.
Yeah.
It's a constant battle. Like, we want to be, like, family friendly, but, yeah, people are also here to have fun by themselves.
Right.
Like, you don't want to be babysitting other people's kids while you're here.
Exactly,
so
right.
it's a mix of just, like, increasingly, like, talking to our staff and just, like, being comfortable, being like, hey, like, we're here to have fun, but, like, your kids this is not a gym. Your
right.
kids should not be running around. Right. Like, let's all, like, keep everyone together. Let's have some fun, and everyone will have a good time.
And if not, you take a 4-pack to go. That's all. Now, the other thing that I've noticed, which I don't think I've ever seen another brewery do this, all of the beers have a color scheme to them, and hence the name Pallet. But there's another reason behind that color scheme, right?
Yeah, so all of our beers are kind of, like, color-oriented. All of our IPAs are blues, lagers are like yellows and browns. Dark beers are obviously like blacks and like darker browns. Wife and I were like figuring out what we wanted to call this brewery for a long time. We were spitting out different names, and there's a lot of things that were taken. Mm-hmm. There was a joke Instagram account. I don't think it's active anymore. Just called Nice Pallet, that had a bunch of brewers were like posting pictures of pallets out in the wild. Okay. And like we were joking, it was like, oh, like palette, and I like flavor palette, color palette, and it was like, oh, we could do something with this. Mm-hmm. So my wife is an art major in college, so we wanted to kind of incorporate that a little bit, and have a little fun with like the multiple definitions of what a palette is.
I love it. I love it. That's cool, and makes it much easier for people to identify. Obviously, when they go, if knowing your brewery and being familiar with it, knowing, hey, this color, it's this version of beer, this color is that version of beer, and that makes everything so much easier. We're talking with Eric McGowan, the co-owner of Pallet Brewing in Maplewood, New Jersey, right off the Garden State Parkway, exit 142C. Brewery open Wednesday through Sunday, and as we said, family friendly. Bring the kids. Make sure you keep an eye on them. For more info on the brewery and their tap room, you can head over to palletbrewing.com or follow them on Instagram at Pallet Brewing. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk more with Eric, especially the beer that I'm drinking right now, which is the West Coast IPA Tahoe. We're going to talk about that particular beer and some other stuff in just a moment on the Algatulo Craft Beer Cast on AM 970 The Answer. Welcome back to the Algatulo Craft Beer Cast on AM 970 The Answer. We're talking with Eric McGowan, the co-owner of Pallet Brewing in Maplewood, New Jersey, right off the Garden State Parkway, exit 142C. The brewery open Wednesday through Sunday. Palletbrewing.com or follow them on Instagram at Pallet Brewing. So, Eric, we're drinking the Tahoe, which is the West Coast IPA, which your brewer is the one, because you said to me before we started, West Coast IPAs are not your wheelhouse of making a beer. There's tricks and whatever, but tell me why it's not your wheelhouse beer.
I love drinking West Coast IPAs. I've struggled to make one that like I am truly happy with. Ones I've made in the past at places I've worked, like people like them, they sell well, but I have just always been not the biggest fan of them. Either I can like going a little too heavy on like some bittering hops or some crystal and whatnot, trying to get a little too sweet. And yeah, when Jorge came on, he said he loves making West Coast IPAs. I was like, great, let's do it. Free reign, like do whatever you want. Right. And yeah, knocked it out of the park with Tahoe.
Jorge, 100% knocked it out of the park with this. This is great. What is your favorite style of beer to make?
Favorite style to make is probably just going to be like a true Euro style lager. Okay. We opened with a Keller beer that we had on tap called Dune. Keller is Zwickel beer, like an unfiltered, unaged German lager, and that is my dream. My favorite beer in the world is Mars U out of Germany. They make an unfiltered lager called Mars U, and it is just absolutely fantastic. They used to ship to New York. They no longer do that. So it's going to be a bit until I have the next one.
Now, most breweries have either a ton of social media presence or very little. You decided on a website and Instagram as the way to go. Why Instagram and not Facebook?
The honest answer is I don't have a Facebook account anymore. I mean, they're owned by the same company, so it's not like it's a big moral stand. Right. But I just had deactivated my Facebook account years ago and just didn't really have one. I think in the beer landscape, Instagram is definitely where people are more active. There are more active, I think, like craft brewery focused Instagram accounts than there are on Facebook. Okay. So I think it's a nice medium for us to get our message, our branding, and like all of our information out there. Yeah. And keeping it focused allows us to actually put out everything that we need.
Right. And I mean, obviously the other thing with Instagram being a visual medium, Facebook is visual, obviously, and people post stuff without posting pictures. But on Instagram, you're posting a picture of the beer. They know what it looks like. They know what the place looks like. I can understand that from that standpoint, and just maintaining a website just so that if people needed to go someplace that was static, that they could go there and check things out. I totally get that. Brewers Guild in New Jersey had their very first conference last month, which is where we met. What was your takeaway from the conference as a whole?
What I really loved about the conference, it was a great opportunity to just kind of reintroduce myself to all of the other breweries out there and like really meet all of their owners. Like I only moved up to Jersey like 3 years ago, relatively new to the New Jersey beer scene, and like the Jersey Brewers Guild is fantastic. It's been great, but we only have a couple meetings a year, and it's like, oh yeah, I saw you like 6 months ago. Who are you again? Right. To have a couple days together to like actually talk about what's working for you, what's not working for people's places, like what we want to change, what we want to do better, potentially talking about collaborations in the future. It was really nice, just like in addition to all of the like information that they presented, it was really great just kind of like come together as a brewing community.
And anything you would like to see the Guild do differently next year, either with this Brewers Conference or the Craft Beer Week that they did in July, which you guys had just opened, so it was kind of right on the cusp of you opening, so you really couldn't do anything. I would like to see them move that Craft Beer Week to some off the summer, because I think the summer is one of those things that's very tricky. People are on vacation; they may not be around when things are going on. And in my opinion, I think if you move it to April or May or even March, I think that's a better way of getting people to come in. When it's a little colder out, maybe they don't necessarily want to get out of their house, and this is an incentive to get them in. But is there anything you would like to see the Guild do differently next year?
I don't really have anything that I want to see differently from the Guild. Just being the first year we opened, I was so busy through a lot of everything. Right. The Guild, it was just kind of like, oh, cool, I'll be there when I can. I'm excited to be a more active member of the Guild this year, and not just like kind of like leech off the knowledge of everyone else. I'm excited to participate more. So I think I'll have a better answer next year after I've like actually been like a little more involved rather than just like absorbing everyone.
That's fair. We're talking with Eric McGowan, co-owner of Pallet Brewing, Maplewood, New Jersey, right off the Garden State Parkway, exit 142C. The brewery open Wednesday through Sunday. PalletBrewing.com is the website. You can follow them on Instagram only at Pallet Brewing. The craft beer that got you started and made you want to brew beer.
I think it's the classic answer for a lot of people. Sierra Nevada Pale. Okay. It's fantastic. Like it wasn't the first craft beer I had. I think that was like Anchor Steam. My freshman year of college, my brother came to visit, brought a 6-pack of that, took one sip, and I was like, it's got too much flavor. Like I went back to Keystone. But I was 18 years old and didn't know anything.
Right.
But I think Sierra Nevada just kind of like that pale ale is a classic for a reason. It is fantastic. It's crisp. It's bitter. It's floral. It's citrusy. Hits like all the marks of like a classic American pale ale. Yeah. I just saw it took gold recently at some European beer competition as an extra special bitter. It won a British beer competition for being the best ESB. And it's like, sure, if you want to consider that, like. They're similar-ish styles, but like it was a great entry point. I went down to Asheville last weekend and got to go to the Sierra plant out there, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna have Celebration because
of course, because it's there.
Right? But like, yeah, I'm gonna have a Sierra Pale because I'm here, and that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean,
You're right about Sierra Nevada being that classic beer, and what's great about it is they've never changed it. They've left it exactly the same. That it's the beer. Like Augie Carton says this all the time. Boat is the beer you want to drink if you want to drink beer. Yeah. Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, that's the same thing. If you want to drink a beer, that's the beer to drink. If you just want to drink a beer, some people will say Sam Adams, but that's a Boston Lager. It's different. It's a different set of circumstances. Great beer, but it's a different set of the recipe and everything else. So I totally get that. All right. One thing that I've noticed on your arm is a tattoo of the Millennium Falcon. I assume that you are a huge Star Wars fan. Yeah. Have you been to the experience down at Disney World yet?
I have not yet. Last time I was at Disney was a couple years before they opened up. I have friends who used to live down there and were absolute Disney freaks. They say I need to go and absolutely love it.
So
it's on my list.
My cousin is I'm a Star Trek guy. He's a Star Wars guy, but we both, we enjoy each. Anyway, he got mad at me because I didn't do Rise of the whatever it is, the experience where you go around and there's all AT-ATs and all this stuff. Only because I didn't want to wait in an hour line and I didn't want to pay the extra money to get in. But I did do the Smuggler's Run where you actually pilot the Falcon, and I have to tell you, it's awesome. My wife hated it because she hates stop-motion rides, so she closed her eyes when the ride started. And there's certain points where you have to hit certain buttons so that the Falcon will do certain things. And I'm yelling at her, hit the button, hit the button. She's like, I can't see. So you will definitely enjoy the experience. I will tell you this, though. You get to Disney World, go do the Tron ride, pay the extra money to cut the line. It is absolutely worth it. If you're into roller coasters and, get a little jump scare for about 60 seconds, it's definitely the ride to do. But with Star Wars, I'll ask you this question that some people will ask and some won't. Did Han shoot first?
Yes, Han shot first. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping that next year that when Lucas re-releases the movie for the 50th anniversary, they'll actually show the original print and not his version of it because it's a little bad.
I paid way too much money for a DVD set of the original theatrical release because, I have a 2.5-year-old. We're very excited to we have some Star Wars books. We have an Empire Strikes Back flip book, and we just don't flip open the page where Vader reveals who he is. Mm-hmm. We just skip over that because I want to keep that as a reveal in a couple of years when we actually watch that.
Cool.
So we're gonna watch the theatrical because I'm a nerd.
I was 7 when it came out. I must have saw it in the movie theater about 25 times when you could go to a matinee for $2. Yes, I am dating myself. Finally, one piece of advice from you that you could give to someone who may be listening and is thinking of starting their own brewery. You just opened up. You're a couple of months, 5 months in, almost 6 months in. What's the one piece of advice that you'd give somebody opening up a brewery?
That's a tough one. One piece of advice to open up a brewery.
What would you do differently about this space? What would you do differently about this space? Knowing what you know now, 6 months in, what would you change? The space of the size of the building, whatever.
I think there's always going to be a desire for more space, but more space comes with more costs. If you're thinking about opening up a brewery, I would say go work at a brewery. Make sure this is what you want to do. Make sure, there's a huge jump from being a home brewer to being a professional brewer to being a brewery owner. Mm-hmm. Just because you are a great home cook does not mean you should be running a restaurant. And you can be a fantastic cook and never want to run a restaurant because it's that and more. Right. I would say if you are thinking about starting a brewery, go work at a brewery. Making great beer is very important. It's not enough anymore. You got to make great beer, but also kind of meet the needs of whatever market you're in and make sure that you're going to be comfortable with running CIP cycles at all hours of the day because when you're starting up, it is you are doing everything. Right. When you do open, make sure you hire very well. That saves you a ton of time and a lot of money of hiring the right people so you don't have to do it more than once. Mm-hmm. And you can wind up with a great staff like we have here. That certainly having Jorge Walker, our GM, is just like taking such a weight off my shoulders and allowing me to do the very boring businessy things I have to do, while still keeping like such a high quality of service and a high quality of beer here.
I have been asking that question for almost 10 years. I think it's the first time that somebody has said, go work in a brewery first if this is what you want to do. You're the first person to say that. I think that's fantastic, and I think that's what everybody should do is get the experience in. If you haven't done it and you don't know what it entails, it's not just throwing money and hiring a brewer and creating a beer. You've made a beer, a couple of gallons, and you think it's great. That's a great answer to a great question. My guest has been Eric McGowan, co-owner of Pallet Brewing right here in Maplewood, New Jersey. Garden State Parkway, exit 142C. They're open Wednesday through Sunday. PalletBrewing.com is the website. Follow them on Instagram at Pallet Brewing. Eric, thanks so much for having me here tonight. Thanks for the beer. Jorge, this was excellent. Best of luck on everything.
Thank you very much. Happy to have you, and we'll see you again.
You got it. Up next, it's time for Suds and Duds, the Thanksgiving weekend edition on the Al Gattullo Craft Beer Cast on AM 970 The Answer.
Final segment of the Al Gattullo Craft Beer Cast here on AM 970. The Answer, as always, it is Suds and Duds. And like I said, I hope, at the beginning of the program, hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving, enjoyed it with family and friends, and, spent the long holiday weekend. I had a long weekend myself because I took off Wednesday. Tuesday I was at a concert over at Starland Ballroom, except in Queensryche. Fantastic show. Good stuff. I mean, they are essentially cover bands now. I mean, there are very few original members left in both bands, but Queensryche is still doing it. Todd Dillatore has a fantastic voice, and he's no Jeff Tate, but he sings close. So I mean, it's good stuff. Very happy, excited. It was it was a lot of fun. Got to hang with a lot of old friends that I grew up with in the neighborhood to watch some metal for a couple of hours. Nothing wrong with that. There's never anything wrong with that. All right, let's dive into Suds and Duds. First up, Autodidact. When I was at Autodidact a couple of weeks ago, I got a pour of the, the first beer that I have. I should do this actually the way I meant to do it. Captain Dan's Wings. This was the first beer that I had at Autodidact. Ron was actually taking pictures of this beer to post on social media, and he said, look, I already got it poured. Drink it, on the house. And so I did. Thank you, Ron. Fantastic IPA. Smooth, really nice. I believe this goes to the Melissa's Wings charity. So a really, really great beer. I don't know if there's cans left, but definitely you should check it out if you can. Then I had the Venona, nice roasty stout. The vanilla, very balanced in this beautiful beer. Really, really nice. I'm a sucker for a good, I keep saying this all the time. We really should have more stouts that are lesser in ABV than the norm, right? Most of these stouts come in at like 9, 10, 12%. They honestly should be right around 5, 6%, 7% at most. I love a good stout or a porter like that because you can drink a couple without feeling overwhelmed. And it's a good after-dinner beer. Like I mentioned earlier with Brooklyn Brewery. 4-Ops, that collab with 4-Ops, that's a beer you drink after dinner. You skip dessert, that's your dessert, right? That's the way to go. I'm just saying. Good stuff. Von Trapp, Pilsner. Hadn't had Von Trapp in a very long time. I decided to have him while I was at Paragon Tap and Table getting ready for the Mammoth show at the Wellmont Theater, which was fantastic. I mean, Wolfie's got it. I mean, come on. We already knew that he had it. But, I mean, now that he's doing it as a solo artist and going out with a great band, it's really – I mentioned this a few weeks back. If you think that rock and roll is dead, I would beg to differ. There are bands out there. You need to go out there and discover them. It's not the same anymore as going to a record store and picking up a record or a CD or a cassette back in my day and throwing it in and saying, hey, let's take a listen to this. You got to go out there and seek those things out. And I try to do that as often as I can, and I try to get to a lot of live shows because I enjoy listening to music live. It's a great experience, and if you've never done it before, you should. Whether you go with friends or you go by yourself, and I've done concerts a couple times by myself. It's a unique experience. You're in it with everybody else, but it's a lot of fun. Go if you can see Wolfgang Van Halen somewhere and see his band Mammoth, go see them. You will not be disappointed. While I was at the Wellmont, surprisingly enough, they did have local craft beer. But local in the sense that not really that close. So they had a roasted stout by Asbury Park Brewing. They also had their blonde there as well. Solid, dry, roasty stout. Loved the low ABV. Under 5%. Great. Loved it. But why Asbury Park? Now, Montclair Brewing is in town. Why not them? I personally don't care for Montclair's beer. I don't, I've had a bunch of their stuff. Didn't care for it. But they're the local guy in town. That's who you should have in there. I'm just saying. Now, maybe they have. I don't know the whole history behind the Wellmont. I will say this. Historic theater, you got to improve the seats upstairs. Guys like me and tall people that I was at the concert, not with, but they were sitting next to us, very, very tough to sit in those seats. Or just blow out the seats and make it a standing room only joint. I don't know. Got to do something. Anyway, moving on to foam brewers. Love these guys. They make great stuff. Picked up this 4-pack of You're Weird Now, which is a fantastic Helles lager, over at the Sunrise Liquor and Spirits up in Westfield, New Jersey. My buddy John is doing the beer buying up there, and this is a great beer. First off, I love the can art, so it already drew me in, but then knowing that it was a Helles lager and it was from foam, I said, this has got to be great, and it was. Just really enjoyed it a whole heck of a lot. A delicious beer, and very happy that I enjoyed that one wholeheartedly. And then finally finished it off with a Full Moon Ritual by Twin Elephant. Fantastic beer, hazy. This is the one that they did with Autodidact. This was their version of their collab. Excellent beer. I might have one more can left in the fridge. There's a couple that I ran out of. And, some I buy 1 4-pack, others I buy 2. I'm so glad the test is reopened. I've got to get over to Williamsburg before the end of the year. A lot of places to get to, but always solid stuff from Twin Elephant. Now, I want to take the last couple of minutes here that I have for the hour and mention a bunch of different things. So, like I said, I hope everybody's Thanksgiving was great. But to go back to the initial conversation at the beginning of the show about Torch and Crown and what is going on essentially in the beer world, right? This is not indicative of the United States where people aren't drinking beer anymore and, alcohol is on the decline. In Germany, it's even happening. There are 1,500 breweries in Germany, in the country of Germany, right? 50 of them have closed already this year. We're not even at the end of the year yet. We're seeing a lot more non-alcoholic beer. We're also seeing a lot of people not drinking in Germany. Times have changed. The younger generation doesn't drink like we did. It's very simple. And so at Oktoberfest this year, I think for the first time ever, every single brewery that was represented there at Oktoberfest had a non-alcoholic beer or soda or something else to drink. That if you didn't want to drink beer, you could have a non-alcoholic beer. I found out in this article in the Times, which I've posted on our Craft Beer Cast page, 50% of Paulaner, which is a very historic brewery in Germany, right? Not as old as Wein and Stefaner, but still very historic. 50% of their sales are non-alcoholic beer. 50%. There was another brewery, a smaller one, in the article that said, we want to change things, but the people in his town resistant to change. Well, you can't be resistant to change and continue your business if you are, if you're trying to get out of debt or whatever, people aren't coming in. There's a lot of things you need to do to pivot and maneuver around. So even in Germany, which is not the birthplace of beer, but they brought beer to America, okay? Things are changing, and you need to adapt with the times. And if you don't do it, you're going to be out of business. And we're seeing that pivot with a lot of breweries in the United States, changing to different things, offering new stuff, maybe bringing in a food component. I know in New Jersey you can't do that, but in other places they're allowed to do that, right? Torch and Crown's problem, it was a confluence of events, right? Not paying their bills, opening in the midst of the pandemic, and trying to be that solid brewery in Manhattan where you're brewing your beer. Real estate is incredibly expensive in Manhattan. 5 years ago, it was expensive. It's even more expensive now. But you're paying $53,000 a month in rent. If your place isn't packed every night, you're not going to survive that long. Plain and simple. I don't care how good the food is. I don't care how good the beer is. Your place has to be packed. You got to be making money, And, I think the laying of the brewery staff off last year and outsourcing the beer was the first sign of the domino falling. And that, my friends, is a shame. But I'm sure there is more to the story. Hopefully at some point John Dantzler will come on the program and talk about it. However, my thanks to everybody involved in this show, as well as my guest, Eric McGowan from Pallet Brewing, and, of course, last but not least, the great Buddy Watson. Back live on the Joe Piscopo Show Monday at 6 a.m. This has been the Al Gattullo Craft Beer Cast on AM 970 The Answer. Cheers, everybody.